Welcome to Retro Scale Modelling. This is part 3 of Tamiya's Kawasaki Ninja ZX-12R. Scale is 1 to 12. I'm going to be carrying on from where I left off in part 2, so I'm working on the engine block, building all of that up. Then I'll be moving on to the back frame, and if we've got time in this video, I shall place the engine into the frame. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. So before I go into some more of the assembly, I'm just going to be painting in some of the little details here. And I'm using Tamiya's X32 titanium silver for this. And these are just the bare metal parts that I'm using this for. So it's just on the rivets, a part of the exposed pipe here and so on. The kit comes with various little tubes or ducting for pipes as well, and these have to be cut to length. This one here is 2.8 millimeters, so I'm just cutting this to length before I place it on. So it's on to the assembly, and first of all, there's a little sub-assembly that has to be done here. This is a little framework. It goes on here. There's little location points for it. They're quite difficult to make out, but the most important thing to remember on this one, it actually goes on at an angle. It doesn't sit straight flush on the main unit. Have a look at the instructions. They are not 100% clear on this. Again, it took a little bit of dry fitting to figure it out. So it's again, I keep on saying, it's worth looking at the instructions and dry fitting before you apply your cement. But once I figured it out, it was easy enough to place on it. It's just the angles slightly, yeah, it feels strange when putting on. It doesn't feel like it should go that way, but it does. The contact points do help with this as well, of course, but if you're not used to building an engine like this, where I'm not, you know, it does take a little bit of figuring out. So while that's drying, the next part to go on is this little T splitter thing for the hoses to connect to, and that sits directly on top of the cover. And then I was able to put in the sub-assembly part, and that just fits right on the side of the engine block. Next to go on are these side covers. Now, when you put these on, try and line the molds up to the engine block, and this becomes more apparent later on down the build when you're attaching little hoses and different little parts to it. It will throw it off balance if you don't get it right. Because when you put the next piece on, this connecting pipe here, it won't sit properly if you haven't lined up this side cap or whatever it is on the engine block. And the same with the second one. There's two little connecting pins on this one that hoses will be connected to. So if you don't get them in position, you'll find it difficult to connect the hoses. The next part to go on is the part that I put the decal on in part 2. And that's got quite a nice large location point for it to sit onto. And the last bit for this section is the piece of hose that I cut off. Now I'm using the real contracted cement to secure this. I'm not sure whether that's going to work or not. Ideally, I think super glue would probably be better, but it's quite a tight fit, so pushing it on and holding it, it shouldn't come off, but there's a chance this might come off. I'm not sure yet. And once it's secured, this gets bent down to the side of the engine block. It can be quite tricky to get the angle, but it should just loop around to the location pin on the previous part that I placed in. It took a little while to do this, as I said. It's because of the length as well. It's only just over 2 centimeters. It's not huge. But if you can't get it exactly right, don't worry about it too much. You really won't see that connection point on the engine block itself. Onto the frame now, and as you can see on the mat here, there's a series of supporting brackets that I've got to go on. point out that I painted this in Tamiya's X18 semi-gloss black. Now, how I approach this when I'm doing a framework, I tend to put the struts in one side first, then marry up the other side. It takes slightly longer, but I feel you get a better control. Why it takes slightly longer is because you wait until the struts are almost dry before you marry it up. Each one has a good location point to follow as a guide to place these on. But again, it's worth pointing out, because I pre-painted them, like I explained in the other videos, these location points can be quite difficult to see because the paint is black. So you may wish to bear that in mind. Now, there's only 4 supporting struts to go onto the main frame initially, so it shouldn't cause too much of a challenge. However, because of the nature and the shape of the frame, it's quite easy to get these parts the wrong way around or upside down. So a little bit of care is needed to place them on. The last strut to go on is slightly different. It's got this little white cap at the end. I used Revit Aqua 04 gloss white for this. Now, I would have used Tamiya, but I've ran out. The Tamiya code is X2 if you're just looking to do Tamiya. As I said in the previous video as well, there won't be an alternative paint guide at the end of the video because all my files were corrupted. So I'm in the processes of recovering them, and if I can't recover them, I'm going to have to redo the whole chart. So that's going to take a tremendous amount of time to do. Anyway, back to the build. It's time to put the marry up the frame. And I approach this with the biggest contact point first, so the widest part of the frame. Get that seated first before I start easing in the struts that I put in. And then I just work down the frame to close everything up and get everything in a good position. It's a relatively simple process. The key is to make sure these struts that are put in first are nice and secure and dry before moving on to this stage. Also, I didn't have to clamp at all on this. Just hold it lightly for about 30 seconds was enough to keep it closed. I can now move on to the other parts of the frame. So I'm just pre-painting these. So I'm using Tamiya's X18 semi-gloss black once more. I think these are, this part is some sort of air intake. Well, that's what it looks like to me anyway. Going on to the radiator, the main part I'm painting in Tamiya's XF16 of flat aluminium, and the frame I'm painting in Tamiya's X11 chrome silver. As I'm painting these, this is where I'm going to end part 3. A little bit shorter than normal, but I've got to wait for the paint to dry, and this is a good place to end it. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other builds? And if you haven't done so, why hit the subscribe button, but make sure you hit the notification bell. That way you'll be kept up to date, not only with this build, but all my future builds as well, of course. Hit the like button. Don't be afraid to leave a comment, and of course you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.